Kevin Kenson wants to know, where are you hiding the Xbox Series X, and what hours can I break into the office to get it?
Okay, so we do not have a Series X yet.
But we're going to get one. We're going to get 12. Thanks, Jeff.
Anyway, hello and welcome to This Is. It is a very special day because we have the full details on the Xbox Series X.
In terms of performance, how do you think it's going to compare to the PS5?
Well, considering that we have no official information on the PS5 performance whatsoever, I think it's a complete guess. If I were to posit a wild guess, I think that the Xbox Series X is performing probably better. Sony have access to the same core building blocks that Microsoft have, right? So they're using those same Zen 2 cores. They have what I'm sure is the same RDNA 2.0 graphics. The difference is that how they decide to build it, right? And I think that Microsoft seem like they're being pretty aggressive on not only like the size of the GPU and obviously having all 8 Zen cores, but also the clock speeds that they're pushing.
So people want to know, will we get VR?
Probably not. So what we know right now is that Microsoft doesn't really care about VR at the moment, or at least on the Xbox side of things. There's nothing stopping this from happening if they want to, right? The hardware is absolutely powerful enough to handle VR pretty much across the board. It meets all the kind of minimum specs that you would expect. But we'll see. Maybe a couple years would be crazy for Microsoft to include support, because I don't think it would be insanely difficult, but also it requires a lot of marketing, a big sort of investment from publishers and stuff. Possible, not happening right now though.
Also feels weird that they've really gone away from Kinect. So it's, you know, to move away from that and then to move into VR, it seems like they just want to say like, no, we're gonna do traditional.
Fewer gimmicks, man. I feel like after the Xbox One launched with the slightly rocky start, I think that they're razor focused on gaming, on performance, and what this new console can do. Anything else like VR that may come in the future would be a huge gimmick and would be a huge distraction right now. I think they're being very smart about the way they've launched this console so far.
The Xbox Series X GPU, is it a sneak peek to the big Navi AMD cards?
Well, yes, although I don't even think it would be Navi anymore because it's actually RDNA 2.0.
Right.
So inside the Series X, there are actually a few improvements over current generation PC technology, specifically on the AMD side. So it is the first GPU to take advantage of RDNA 2.0. So this is an actual step forward compared to the Navi GPUs that we have today. So I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but if you compare the GPU inside the Series X to what you get on, say, like a 5700 XT, which is currently the biggest, most powerful AMD Navi GPU that they make, it has more CUs and runs at a fairly similar clock speed. It's sort of right in that right ballpark. So at a base level, it is more powerful. Like if you look at like teraflops, it's like, what, 9 versus 12 or something like that. But beyond that, the fact is that the RDNA 2.0 architecture has a lot of additional features. Ray tracing, better just general performance. So like a Navi teraflop versus an RDNA 2.0 teraflop are not the same thing.
Anything about the variable refresh rate? Don't be looking at your watch. You're supposed to be in theater mode.
I forgot.
You're supposed to be in theater mode.
I forgot to turn on my watch. Well, so actually it's not wildly different than the already built-in support in the Xbox One and the One X. With the Series X, you can run all the way up to 120 frames per second. And I assume that the FreeSync range will therefore go all the way up. Mind you, you still need to have a display that can support, 4K 120 or even theoretically 1080 120, I think would work.
But it's not going to work with like 144 hertz display, right? That's where it's going to differ from the PC side.
Well, it depends. Theoretically, it might, because I think they have technically the bandwidth. There are a lot of things they can do with an Xbox. However, every single additional feature and option that they add then needs to be supported by developers and stuff. It gets really complicated. I think for simplicity's sake, they're probably going to go, okay, cool. Here are your 2 resolutions or 3 resolutions. Here are your couple of frame rate options, and they just leave it at that.
It theoretically can do 8K, but a developer's not going to be. We're not going to see 8K for a while.
I would be amazed if we see 8K games, short of something like a pixel game or like something super, super basic.
Right. Why do you still need batteries for the controller? This is one I would love to have answered for myself.
Look, man, when we walked into the room, right, it was a very cool sort of design center where Microsoft built all the prototypes for stuff that's not coming out for years and everything. I walk in, I'm like, oh, there's the controller. They were giving me, the whole spiel, explaining it and everything. I had the controller in my hand, and it took everything in me not to flip it over and open up the battery door Ken, what was that? According to the Xbox guys, a lot of people still enjoy using AA's on
And
their
I'd
console.
love to meet the dozen people who actually like using them.
They said it was much more even split between AA's versus rechargeables. I always just use the play and charge kit, and to be fair, I can use my same play and charge kit from the Xbox One on the Series X. I just kind of like feel like it's 2020. They should ship the play and charge kit, and if you want to use AA batteries, just pull it out. It can be the exact same controller. It's just as like, what do they ship in the box? And for now, at least, it's AA batteries. So
what I will give them credit for is that they moved to USB-C instead of micro USB. Does it scratch at a level 6 with deeper grooves at a level 7?
Look, man, this thing's plastic. It probably scratches at like a level 2 or something.
If you look at some of our B-roll, it actually does have some scuffs.
Yeah, I would actually say the material and specifically like the plastic feels almost the same, if not identical, to the Xbox One X. It's a console.
Will there be a new UI?
I can say that the Series X, the UI, from my knowledge of it, is an evolution of what we have on Xbox One. I think that you can think about it in some ways as like Windows, in that Windows is constantly evolving, but it's not necessarily like a new OS from one to another. It's just sort of an evolution of that. And I think Series X is likely going to be the same.
And I imagine that the existing, 1Xs or ones, that like it's all just gonna be unified. Can it run Windows 10? No. Is there RAM in the SSD?
Yes. So it's complicated. Obviously, even though it's a very fast SSD, you're still talking about orders of magnitude slower than GDDR6.
Sure.
Right? I mean, it's like a few gigabytes per second versus like hundreds of gigabytes per second. Obviously, any asset comes from the SSD. Everything comes from the SSD to start with. Generally speaking, though, the CPU has to round trip things like, oh, okay, here's a new asset or here's a new texture, whatever. I have to go to the SSD, get it, move it over, then copy it over to the G6 memory. Here, there are ways where the GPU can almost kind of call stuff from the SSD and sort of bypass some of the round tripping, but I'm not a developer. I don't know how robust that sort of setup is, but the idea is that even though you have 16 gigs of G6 memory built in, that you can, as a developer, sort of take advantage of the SSD for like maybe slower things and sort of flush that in and out. But I'm not a developer. I don't really know how useful it is and how much it will make a difference.
Can the old Xbox One controller be connected to the Xbox Series X?
Yes. So, with the exception of probably like Kinect, pretty much any Xbox One accessory, controller, hard drive, whatever, can go straight into Series X. And fun fact, the Series X controller,
Vice versa, right?
backwards compatible. Well, going forward, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But at least like your Series X controller, you literally plug it straight in or sync it straight to an Xbox One. Just works. So yes, for right now, you can literally take, if you have like an Xbox One S or a Series or a One S or One X, you unplug it, you take your Series X, you plug it in, same cable, same figure 8 power cable, everything, and it just works.
What are the port selections on the Series X?
There are 3 USB-A ports, 1 on the front, 2 on the back. They're all 5 gigabits, so it's pretty much they're the exact same as
Exact
what we
same
had.
ones as before. And so one of the other questions we got, which seemed like people are pretty upset by, is there's no HDMI in.
No HDMI in.
Which
yes.
a lot of people are sad if that was gone. Will USB 3 portable SSDs be the same speed as that expansion card?
Absolutely not. Your Xbox One games on your current external hard drives will work just fine. But Series X games specifically, they need that full speed of the SSD, which means it either has to be installed internally or on one of the expansion modules.
How heavy is the Series X?
It's not that bad. So it's about 10 pounds. So for reference, I think the One X is about 8 pounds. So I mean, it's not as dense as the One X. It's bigger, but it's like, it feels like not that much heavier. It's fine. Honestly, it's a little bit lighter, especially knowing like all the stuff that's inside. It's a little bit lighter than I thought when I first picked it up.
Based on first impressions, does the airflow matter if you put the Series X on its side?
No. So there's obviously some slight convection. Obviously heat just sort of naturally rises, but really it's pretty well channeled so that that fan is sort of pulling air in through the bottom. So it should, theoretically, you may see very, very slight differences, but theoretically it doesn't really matter if it's sort of horizontal or vertical. It's designed to work.
And they designed a special fan for this, right?
Super custom, 130 millimeter, very sort of complex sort of surfacing on around the actual fan. Like they've done a lot to sort of channel the airflow, because you have to think about it. That single fan is pulling air through obviously the vapor chamber and the heatsink. It's also pulling air through like the SSD on the other side and that center chassis. messy, and you have to consider that you have that 300-watt power supply, which also needs airflow. So the air is kind of having to move all the way through the console, so they have to be very careful with that. So if you, say, cover the top, since obviously that's the exhaust, normally that would cause huge problems. But they actually have a little sort of on the backside, there's a little cutout where essentially the air can go out. So even if you like accidentally put something on top of your Series X, you may have some slight overheating issues, but at least air is still able to get out somewhat.
How expansive is the backwards compatibility?
We'll see when it goes live. I don't even think Microsoft has like the final number. The idea though is that if it is a game that ran on the Xbox One, it should run on Series X, with very few exceptions.
But there's, and I think they even said like a possibility of like 360, like.
Oh no!
Like,
when I say that, I mean anything that ran on Xbox One.
Right.
So original Xbox games, I know for a fact that that is working at least somewhat on Series X. I know their compatibility team are having to double check the thousands of titles that they have.
Yeah, exactly.
But essentially, games like original Xbox games, 360s, that are backwards compatible right now. The only reason why games may not work is, again, Kinect, I think, is probably not going to come through. Or if a specific publisher says, hey, no, don't let that work on the Series X, they may be able to hold it. But generally speaking, if it worked, again, all the backwards compatible games that worked on Xbox One, go straight over to the Series X. All right.
So those were your questions.
Well, hopefully you guys have been Xboxed out. So I know that it's been a very exciting couple days here. But I think there's a lot more to come over the next year. We haven't even gotten like sort of a lot of next-gen gameplay yet.
Right.
There's a lot more that we have to take a look at. So make sure to subscribe here on This Is. Until next time, Sony, where are you at?
Don't send me 12 Sonys.
You've said that joke so many times. Jimmy's gonna be so mad that he has to cut all of these references out now.
I said don't send it. I want Xbox.
You're making a reference to the 12 joke again.
All right, let's do another one then.
No, it's fine. Jimmy has to use that.